We will be finished. Good afternoon. Welcome to our Borders Committee meeting for Friday, April 28th, 2023. My name is Jesus Escobar. I am Supervisor for District 1 for Imperial County and the Vice Chair, honored Vice Chair for this committee. Unfortunately, our Chair, Matthew Leiva Gonzalez, wasn't able to attend today's meeting, so you get me today. I apologize. With that, good afternoon. Bienvenidos. Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Thank you, Chair. We do have a quorum.
Wonderful. This meeting will be conducted in both English and Spanish. Why don't we go over the role and responsibilities in that regard, please?
Yes, Chair, thank you. We will begin with the announcement in Spanish and then we will be back with the announcement in English. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular o tableta, presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Además, para acceder a los servicios de interpretación de manera presencial, pide auriculares en la recepción. To use the Zoom interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, World, and select either English or Spanish. If you are joining using the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, please press the ellipsis, 3 dots, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Additionally, to access English, Spanish simultaneous interpretation in the room in person, check out a headset from the receptionist. Gracias and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. Before we begin, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we live and work on traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of tribal nations, including the Kumeyaay, Briseño, Cupeño, and Coahuila peoples. We share strong historical and cultural roots that unite us with all of our neighbors. I also want to remind everybody that this is a hybrid meeting. Members of the public, including Border Committee members that would like to speak on an item, please use the raise hand icon in the Zoom toolbar. When you are called by the chair or the clerk, you will be unmuted by SANDAG staff. If you are calling in by phone, you may need to enter *6 to unmute yourself. After your comments, you will be muted by SANDAG staff. If you're calling into the meeting, please press *9 on your phone if you would like to comment on an item. All comments, whether emailed or live, will be made as part of today's meeting record. We do have an acknowledgement of somebody that is online. Is that correct, Clerk?
Thank you, Chair. We do have 2 members of the committee that are actually joining us virtually today. And as part of that process, we would like to make sure that they are participating according to the Just Cause participation guidelines. So Councilmember Moreno, I just have a couple of questions. If you could state for us the need or that has arisen that requires you to participate virtually, and also agree to leave your camera on during the duration of the meeting, and state for us that there is no one over the age of 18 with you in the room presently.
Thank you. My just cause is related to my childcare needs, and yes, pursuant to the Brown Act, I am disclosing that there is no individual 18 years of age or older present in the room with me. And of course, I will update this disclosure if it changes during the course of the council meeting. And yes, I will keep my camera on.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. And Mayor Pro Tem Crystal Ruiz is also joining us virtually. Mayor Pro Tem, are you able to leave your camera on and also state for us the reason of your virtual attendance and that there's no one over the age of 18 in the room with you?
There's no one over the age, under the age of 18 with me. I can't keep my camera on because I'm losing you guys with the reception here, but I'm here. And I threw my back out, so I'm sort of here. I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Since you're not able to leave your camera on, I'm going to go ahead and move you back over to the attendee side, and you're still welcome to participate in the meeting as a member of the public.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll move on to the public comments, Chair, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
We have one public comment on this item, and that will be Blair Beekman. You can go ahead when you're ready.
Just before she starts, I would just want to welcome Councilor Moreno as well as our Mayor Pro Tem to the meeting. And I hope to see you both in person soon. Thank you.
Thank you. And Blair, you can go ahead with your comments now.
Great, thank you. Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thank you for the 3-minute timer. This board, the work that SANDAG's been doing with border issues has been remarkable. It's been really nice to move here to San Diego and learn what you've been doing. And thank you. It's comforting. I heard there's a really important meeting this week of different leaders of Latin America who traveled to San Diego and was part of the International American Studies program, something like that. I don't quite know its name yet, but it was spoken about in an earlier meeting by Chairperson Vargas. And it sounded like just an amazing week. So you guys have had some really intense stuff this week. Good luck in those efforts, how to, sift through what you learned this past week and really develop, I think, what could be some really interesting concepts for our future. And that concepts that we don't have to be fearful of. That's what I'm so hopeful of what happened this past week is to develop plans that people don't have to fear. They're just our better ideals and better selves that I'm hoping, and good luck on those efforts. With that said, I try to make it a point to understand that from this meeting, I think it was from this meeting, in fact, that Tijuana is working on development issues for their housing needs and goals and for their downtown area. And I just thought that, we have plans set to work on mixed income ideas in this state by 2029, that it would be nice to connect with Tijuana on those sort of subjects and work towards the promise of how high income, very high income and very low, extremely low income can live together in the same building, in the same areas, in the same neighborhoods. I think it's really interesting concepts of cooperation, and I just think it's a real hopeful future in how to do that. If we start working more on that now, it sets a good course for ourselves, and we can talk more with Tijuana about really innovative future planning ideas. I think they should be interested in, and it's good stuff. Good luck in those efforts to be talking with Tijuana about that. And I wanted to mention with law enforcement issues that with the SJPOA fentanyl situation, I understand that law enforcement has wanted to take a real proactive approach and be leaders of the community again. And it's just not going to be happening, I don't think. I think we have to return to the concepts of Reimagine, which was a real effort to balance the needs of law enforcement and community with a new sense of community purpose and community goals about what community can do, neighborhoods can do with ideas of policing. And we just have to learn how to talk about that more and not be totally overly focusing on police. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the public commenters on this item.
Thank you, Clerk. Bringing it back to this board, do you have any committee comments? Go ahead.
I just wanted, this is Carolina Chavez from the City of Chula Vista Council District 1, and I have been a borders friend, advocate for many, many, many years. And I did want to bring something to the attention of the board in this board meeting. Title 42 is set to be lifted on May 11th. Immigration agents will return to processing people that are seeking humanitarian asylum in the United States. Processing centers in Guatemala and Colombia yesterday were announced by Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas and Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Basically, my comment today is because I worked for 4 mayors in the city of Tijuana back in the day when I started my career. And I know what I understand the capacity, the most transited border in the world has the floating population of people working, coming every single day, northbound and southbound on a daily basis. And what CBP, Customs and Border Protection, might be facing in the processing facilities and their capacity that they have. I am suspecting we might need to reach out to Customs and Border Protection to see the status of the capacity they have, because as we've seen in other times when we've had this migration factor coming to the border, what happens is they close down Ped West, which is the additional Ped West northbound, southbound pedestrian facility. And, you know, the wait times for pedestrian crossings become from 5 to 6 hours. Imagine the people that are coming here to work at 8 a.m., having to arrive at what time to cross the border. It's just a huge red light for me. I might not be doing it myself, but I understand it pretty well. And as well, as people that cross the border, I don't know how many of you here cross the border in a, not daily, but, you know, weekly basis or monthly basis, you might see that Customs and Border Protection put up barricades and other stuff like, you know, agents a few meters out of the border crossing to inspect that you have your RFID documents ready, your visas, because we're seeing a lot of people running through car lanes, right? Because as soon as they get to the yellow barricades, they can be detained and they can ask, because that's US soil, they can ask for humanitarian visas. But again, I'm just worried that we should be paying more attention to this. May 11th is going to be lifted. Title 42 is going to be lifted. And this is a regulation on Title 8 that was put on pause because of COVID and the pandemic. So they stopped the humanitarian visas process. But again, yesterday there was an announcement from Guatemala and Colombia facilities that are going to be open by American agencies. The Secretary of Homeland Security and Secretary of State announced it. But still, I think it's going to be a larger issue where I think we should contact, I know Natalia Figueroa is here from the Mexican consulate and Carlos Gonzalez is actively working on this, but I think this board, specifically this board, should be highly involved in talking to the Tijuana government and to the Baja government and to the federal government and see how we can collaborate in all levels of government on both sides of the border, because if we close down lanes because of lack of personnel and Customs and Border Protection, if we close down lanes, if we see people camping at the border, if we see people running through the cars, they're going to close down lanes in Customs and Border Protection. I could just suspect that. And that's going to affect billions of dollars in international trade across the board and all these floating population of people that we have just coming to work every single day and going back. In general, it's going to affect and cost us millions. So this is May 11th. It's right around the corner. And I really, really want to emphasize that we need to get on this topic as soon as possible.
I thank you for your comments and being a border resident from my entire life, having done my college studies here in San Diego and having a lot of fun in Tijuana back in the 90s. I can fully relate to what you're saying. And now being a customs broker by trade, it's a threefold issue, not even take into consideration the humanitarian aspects of it. But if you carve out the humanitarian aspects, you've got the pedestrian crossers, you've got the cross-border traffic, and you've got the goods movement or international commercial industrial trade that could affect us significantly. And it doesn't just affect this community, it affects every border community on the southern ports of entry for the United States. But specifically, what I would want the board's committee to do, and I'll follow your lead, council member, and I apologize, I had to look over, Chavez, is that if this committee could bring over a coalition of federal, state, and local officials for the country of Mexico, along with the US CBP and US Border Patrol, to make a joint meeting to discuss this specific issue, because it's going to be an issue that's going to affect us long-term, not short-term. And we do need to be on the same page, and we do need to coordinate that as best as possible. So I think that would be welcomed by everybody, and it would be good information for us to fully be able to implement whatever we can at our basic level, if that's okay.
I would add some, like Canacintra, maybe some business groups as well that are in also the maquiladora industry, one representative to maybe, or Hector, you can probably reach out to them, because they have high interest in this on that side of the border. And I know on this side of the border, international traders are bread and butter. So if that's feasible, I would add at least one representative from the maquiladora and from the economic development committees that we have.
Well, there's two specific groups. The Otay Mesa Chamber of Commerce is very active in this from a trade perspective.
Yeah.
And you also have the Canirac, which is the Truck Driver Association, very similar to Canacinta, but it's related to the trucking industry in Mexico. And related to that, there's also the San Diego Imperial County Customs, and I forgot the official acronym, but it basically is a trade representation of the local customs broker community that is basically represented by mostly San Diego brokers. That would also be a good element to include from a private sector perspective.
And I mentioned Canacintra, and I understand perfectly Canirac, because we see a large percentage, a huge percentage of local regional businessmen that go southbound every single day to their businesses, right? In Tijuana. So, and they live off not just international trade, but also tourism. As we found out here in the US, because I was working for Council District 3 as the Director of Economic Development, when we shut down and restricted the border crossings, they were hurting by billions, all our businesses here in San Diego. And I think that, you know, what's going to happen if our workforce is getting delayed 3, 4, 5, 6 hours to cross the border? That's what makes San Diego so sustainable, that we have such a great partner across the border, because we don't have enough affordable housing. So I can go into this for hours, but I just want to emphasize on the importance that we need to address this.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez. And I think we have given staff direction for future meetings. I believe Gustavo was first, but he's a gentleman, so go ahead.
Thank you, Gustavo. And thank you, Council Member, for bringing this very important issue to the Borders Committee. Just wanted to let you all know that the Mexican Consulate, along with other Mexican authorities like the National Institute of Migration of Mexico and Customs and the state of Baja California, I see Fabricio over here, but with David Perez Tejada and of course with the city of Tijuana, we have been convening regular meetings since December, since the very first time that we heard that Title 42 could be lifted. And we have been convening several meetings with the port authorities, the Mexican side, and of course also with Customs and Border Protection to see how we can address the potential lifting of Title 42 respecting the U.S. migration laws and the U.S. migration decisions, but as well respecting human rights for the migrants that would be asking for asylum in the U.S. And I will bring this request to the group that meets regularly. And of course, we have also included the private sector. We know that the private sector is very concerned about the impact that this could have in the waiting times, not only for the truck drivers, but also for the people who come every day to work to San Diego. So I will take that to the Consul General, and thank you for bringing this to the Borders Committee.
Thank you. Prior to continuing, we do want to follow the protocols that have been established and not avoid any Brown Act violations. So there has been direction given to staff to bring this back in a more cohesive, inclusive plan or presentation involving key stakeholders. So I would like to move on from the specific conversation to avoid any Brown Act violations. With that, Gustavo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I wanted to highlight briefly the highway worker memorials events that were held this week throughout the state on In San Diego, we held it on Tuesday, and in Sacramento, it was held actually yesterday. And at these memorials, we remembered and honored the lives of 191 state workers that lost their life in the line of duty while designing, constructing, maintaining, and operating our state transportation system. At the event yesterday, it was very moving and heartbreaking to see the families of the two employees, state employees that we lost last year. Kwanda Magadni, her 10-year-old daughter, was at the event. And Shabazz Ali, his 7 kids were at the event. It's very heartbreaking to see this. But as I was watching this event, here in our own backyard in San Diego, one of our state workers got hit by a vehicle while working on Interstate 8 and sustained multiple severe injuries. So I want to share that with all of you to ask you to help us to spread the word out about worker safety, about keeping our people safe, not just our workers, but also our emergency responders, our contractors. They're out there helping the public move around our region, and we need your help in communicating to the public that they need to move over, give our workers room to do their job. No 10-year-old should be losing their parent while they're at work. And it's very sad, and because a lot of these collisions and losses are preventable. So hopefully we can spread the word out to get people to drive less aggressively, not to drive distracted, and not to drive impaired. So thank you for your time. And I just wanted to add briefly, I'm going to have to step out in about 5 minutes for a meeting about Otay Mesa East, but Jose Marquez will be sitting in with me, and hopefully I can come back before the meeting's over. Thank you.
Thank you for that emotional and important message related to life lost on the job, working for all of us, because we all use our state freeways and our state highways, obviously. So we need to be careful. And obviously road rage is a definite issue that goes on in all of our lives on a daily basis. So thank you. With that, we're moving on to item number 2. I want to welcome Victoria Stackwick. She will be making a presentation for us. And I look forward to her presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Just some agency highlights to update you on. This past Monday, we hosted mayors from Brazil, Uruguay, Panama, Paraguay, and Mexico as they kicked off their tour of the San Diego region. Thanks to the Institute of Americas for organizing the visit and to Board Chairwoman Vargas for hosting. The mayors are now at their 2023 City Summit in Denver, Colorado. During our recent trip to Washington, D.C., which was held a couple weeks ago, board and agency leadership met with our federal partners at USDOT, CBP, and GSA to discuss the federal funding strategy for Otay Mesa East. As a result of these meetings, this coming Tuesday, May 2nd, we will go back to Washington for a follow-up workshop with the same partners to try to finalize a financial strategy. This will enable us to move forward with the design process for the port of entry. In LoSAM project news, the governor announced this week the agency will be receiving $100 million for the San Diego Bridge Replacement Double Track project. This transit and intercity rail program award is the largest in the state and can help us attract federal funds to fully construct the bridge. Moving on to the Central Mobility Hub, the project is progressing and the team has released a comprehensive multimodal corridor plan for public comment through June 5th. Work also continues on the Blue Line and Purple Line and Smart Connections. This Thursday, board members, you have in front of you a card. We will be kicking off on May 4th Bike Month and celebrating a groundbreaking of the Border to Bayshore Bikeway. This represents a transformative vision for a more efficient border. You will hear more about this on today's agenda. Our friends south of the border will also hold their parallel event to the Bike Anywhere Day, and they have been doing as they've been doing in conjunction with SANDAG since 2011. Additionally, Mexico is developing a new national mobility strategy. We are working with the Mexican agencies to follow their progress and make sure that their vision is consistent with SANDAG. The city of Tijuana is also implementing a new public-private partnership transit service that will run a cross-border bus from downtown Tijuana to San Isidro. The UN Habitat Program distinguished SANDAG by inviting us to participate in the General Assembly in Nairobi, Kenya this June. This week, we have officially accepted this invitation and Board Chairwoman Vargas will attend. Finally, we want to extend our congratulations to Mexico's Consul General Carlos Gonzalez Gutierrez. He has been appointed to lead the Mexican Consulate General in Los Angeles. We are grateful for his service here and have appreciated his support through the years. He has been a friend to us and an important proponent for our border projects. He will be with us for a few more months before moving on to his new post. Please convey our congratulations to him. Thank you, Chair, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Stackwick. Please offer my congratulations or our congratulations to our current council. He still hasn't left yet. Y muchas felicidades en su nuevo cargo. Do we have any public comments, clerk?
Thanks, Chair. No public comments.
Do we have any board comments? Seeing none, item number 3, approval of the minutes. Hope you've reviewed the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I do have a motion and a second. Please vote. I'm not sure how we're going to.
Chair, we're actually, since we have virtual participants today, we'll need to do a roll call vote.
Understood. Thank you.
For South County, Councilmember Chavez? Yes. For East County, Vice Mayor Koval?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. If you guys could also hit the remotes just so that we record it on the voting slide, but the official record will be the roll call vote. I'm sorry. So for East County, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Koval, could you state your vote again? Yes. Thank you. For the City of San Diego, Councilmember Moreno?
Yes, Moreno, yes.
For the County of San Diego, Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
For Imperial County, Vice Chair Escobar?
Yes.
For North County Coastal, Councilmember Drucker?
Yes.
And for North County Inland, Mayor White?
Yes.
Thank you. And that item passes unanimously.
Thank you, clerk. Moving on to item number 4, San Isidro Mobility Hub. Mr. Zach Hernandez, you have the floor.
Vice Chair Escobar, thank you to the board's committee members for having me today. Yeah, my name is Zach Hernandez. I'm a planner here at SANDAG. Super excited to be here. Thank you for having me on the agenda to present on this project. To start, I just kind of wanted to kick it off with maybe a quick thought experiment. This is for the visual learners like myself. I'll be brief. I'll try to make this kind of quick, but I want you to imagine yourself heading your way to Petco Park. You just bought tickets. The game's going to be sold out. The place is going to be rocking. You're with your best friends, excited for the nachos, for the beer, for the baseball. You get there on the trolley, of course, which is the best way to get there. Find your seats, you sit down, you're ready for the first pitch. Another group then a couple minutes later approaches yours and they say, hey, I think you might be in our seats. You pull out your phone, you check your MLB app on your phone and you're like, hey, this isn't right. Both of us have the same seats. You look up the entire Petco Park, the whole stadium is having the same experience. The whole game is double booked. A couple minutes later, somebody jumps on the PA and says, hey, we need everybody to get up and please leave the stadium. We need to figure this out. So right then, about 85,000 people stand up and try to make their way through a select number of exits. That dynamic, that volume of people and a similar dynamic is happening every single day just through the San Isidro port of entry alone. These are your friends, your colleagues, yourselves potentially, all trying to connect via the San Isidro port of entry to school, to work, to run their businesses and everything in between. For me, the first thing that jumps out is like, wow, yes, that's a lot of people. But secondly, what jumps out is, hey, that's a really critical demand, a really high demand, something that we should be focused on. How do we make that better? How do we make that more efficient? But also from a regional planning lens and an economic strength lens, how do we leverage that? Sorry if the clicker's asleep. So the 2021 regional plan, the 5 big moves, which hopefully you've all gotten to know and gotten to hear about a bit, really puts us in a really good position to address just that. It brings together the best of transportation planning, technology, strategic land use investments, and strategic investments overall in terms of infrastructure as the years go on to bridge the gap between how we get around our urban fabric via a more robust mobility network. The ports of entry, when we look at the data, are already facilitating a massive amount of this cross-border demand and regional travel. And the San Isidro port of entry has kind of been at the heart of that conversation as the primary workhorse facilitating cross-border movement for our shared population. So this project is really centered in that reality. The San Isidro Mobility Hub is looking to leverage that dynamic, make improvements at this really critical site, and bring the best of the regional plan to the border. Today, about 20,000 of the 80 or 90,000 people who are crossing just northbound through the San Ysidro port of entry every day are doing so on foot as pedestrians. And once they do, they're all landing at a transit center in a plaza space that's been roughly in the same configuration for roughly the last 20 years or more. We know we can do better. And through the regional plan, we really reflect a commitment to do that. And so if we want to do better, we really have to understand what's happening out there today. What's going on? What are the impacts that are really limiting how we serve the public via San Ysidro? And through visiting the site for ourselves, talking to stakeholders who have been around for decades, reviewing the previous planning documents, getting a better intimate knowledge of the site, what's been rising to the top are the three things that you see on screen. And the first thing really kicks it off and sets the stage for the others. But what we're dealing with is a very small space, comparatively speaking. It's a tiny footprint. You have a massive amount of demand. And given that and the foot traffic there, you have very constrained capacity for operations. How many people can you serve via the different modes that are all crammed, trying to serve this port of entry and this transit center? Then you have, given that demand and given all the different modes that are connecting here, inevitably you have conflict points where pedestrians, vehicles, transit vehicles, service vehicles, security vehicles are all converging at specific spots, really impacting connectivity and safety. And then overall, the configuration of the space, how things are laid out, is kind of confusing. It doesn't lead to an optimized user experience, and especially if it's your first time using this space and experience this space, it's really difficult to understand intuitively where should I go to connect to this or that. So these are kind of the main things that are really impacting San Ysidro today. And with that in mind, our approach to our future vision, the San Ysidro Mobility Hub, includes two phases. A phase one that essentially tries to answer the question, what can we do in the near term to get more out of the existing transit center? How do we make what we have today better? This is all trying to improve on the challenges you just saw on the last slide. Phase two then builds from that and builds from that momentum to look at the long-term vision and more aspirational, future-looking look at what can we do in terms of the future San Ysidro Mobility Hub? What will it look like? How will it function? What's the ultimate build-out? Phase two really builds from phase one and looks to, like I said, a broader array of mobility, design, and land use considerations. And it's also where we're going to be looking at some design scenarios that could incorporate a future cross-border trolley, for example. These are the bigger, more aspirational, more long-term opportunities. And so with the ongoing work, the study that's been ongoing for the last several months is really honed in on phase one. Like I said, the near-term look at things, how do we get more out of the existing transit center? And given the near-term nature and the complexity of the site, we knew we had to have some really honed in project goals and objectives. And I won't belabor this too much, but generally speaking, we know we want a more optimized transit center in terms of mobility, in terms of safety, and in terms of access. In terms of the process, this, at the end of the day, is a planning study, and the nature of this planning study and planning studies like it are to document discussions, document brainstorming on a technical level, on a not so technical level, get community sentiment, get community vision, and bake that into some options, some opportunities, if you will. And for this study, the one that's ongoing, we have a core team of agencies, partner agencies, including staff from SANDAG, MTS, who's also funding the study, City San Diego, and Caltrans, who are kicking it off with some initial brainstorming, throwing around some ideas, discussing what do we think are some good ideas, packaging those, giving some shape, some form to them so that we can go through specific milestones that we'll hit throughout the project and have an iterative process where, as we hit these milestones, we're reaching out proactively to the community, to key stakeholders, to get the word out, to get input, to get buy-in, to just share and discuss. But given the binational nature and significance of this site, obviously the relevant stakeholders is everybody. It includes all manner of government, of community, of industry at all levels and on both sides of the border. So it's a really big task, and I'm pretty happy with the level of engagement that we've received, that we've generated, but there's a lot more ground to cover. There's a lot more people to meet with, to discuss with, et cetera. So this slide is just talking about a bit about the process, how it's going to go, and the iterative nature of when we reach key milestones, how are we getting there, and what's the community involvement and all that. And so to kick off kind of a sharing of the brainstorming that's been kind of brewing in so far behind the scenes with the key group of project development team agencies, like I said, SANDAG, MTS, City San Diego, and Caltrans. I want to start here with just kind of a quick discussion about the transit center overall. And if we think about it in terms of, a Lego set, There's some big pieces, some medium-sized pieces, some small pieces. So far, given the phase one goals, looking at what can we do in the near term to improve operations, maybe add some capacity for our transit services, improve the pedestrian experience. The first big puzzle piece that we need to tackle is what do we do with the trolley? A long-term operational goal that MTS has had and has tried to look for ways to address is adding a third terminus track for the Blue Line trolley. Right now, where it's configured, you have 2 terminus tracks. They're short. They cut in front of vehicle lanes, in front of natural pedestrian pathways. And we need to look at a way to, one, if we want to add a third terminus track, we'll likely need to move it. We know we can't just lay it down exactly where it is and expect the problems to just go away. So what you're seeing on screen right now is one such idea where we're looking at potentially, what does it look like? How does a site operate and flow? How do people access the different services there if we move the trolley a bit to the east to add that third terminus track? So this is one such idea that we're studying further. This is just a quick graphic depiction to just share that we've been brainstorming. Another idea that we've been talking about and are going to be studying further is what does it look like? How does the site flow? How does it operate? If we move the tracks to the east again, but this time elevate the platform above grade. So effectively, this is a third terminus track stationed at a above grade platform. And what this gives you obviously is a little bit more space at ground level to work with, to program, et cetera. But again, this is just one such idea. Another is what does it look like if we elevate the existing alignment and add a third terminus track above ground or above grade? Again, these are just shared today to give you a sense of the type of brainstorming that's been going on. I don't want anybody to leave here or sign off the Zoom and think, oh, that's the project, or this is what SANDAG and partners are looking to do. These are ideas. This is a planning study. We're documenting some brainstorming, but we're here today to kind of share a little bit of what we're thinking so far. But with that said, there's going to come, the milestone where we document, obviously, the pros and cons to all this. I'm sure you're already kind of, your brain is firing in terms of the trade-offs, the pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses of all these different ideas. We're going to get there, and we're going to document all of that, and we're going to have, there's still a lot of community involvement and stakeholder engagement that needs to happen before these concepts can really be called, station improvement concepts. So far, these are ideas. And like I said, that first big puzzle piece is what do we do with the trolley? Maybe the second biggest puzzle piece is how then do we reconnect buses and vehicles, and how do we improve the flow through what a lot of people call the bus loop or the guitar or the banjo, whatever you find yourself calling it. What you're seeing on screen is one configuration that some planners and engineers think this maybe could work. This shows a little bit of promise. But effectively, this is kind of a broadening of the bus loop. So you have that much more capacity to serve the public via transit and connect them to the big commercial bus operations that have a big presence down there as well. Obviously, the federal government is not just a big stakeholder and an adjacent property owner, but they also own a piece of this bus loop. So there's been a lot of coordination with the federal government, with local property owners, et cetera, to just kind of share what we're thinking and get their ideas. But yeah, maybe the second biggest puzzle piece that we're still working through is how do we kind of reconnect the buses? And then the third one we kind of alluded to up here to the left, and I'm glad that the next agenda item is going to be talking about bike connections, because right now a huge bottleneck is this like 1/10 of a mile jog of San Ysidro Boulevard that spills directly into the bus loop. With a couple of these concepts, we're looking to relocate some of that approach tracking. And what that does is give you that much more width adjacent to San Ysidro Boulevard to reprogram the space, maybe give you some more operational capacity, a better flow. So right now, kind of that core group of agencies is kicking around some ideas of how do we program that space? Can we plug in a bus lane? Can we plug in, dedicated bike facilities and bike infrastructure, that sort of thing. So just hinting at a future date where we're going to be bringing more information back to the Borders Committee to share a little bit more definition, but a lot more to go, obviously. So with that, before I wrap up, I just want to thank all the stakeholders who are listening and really appreciate all the engagement so far. There's still a lot of ground to cover. Like I said, a lot of dimension and detail that we still have to hash through. But we're really excited about how this kind of brainstorming is starting to take shape and where it's going. In terms of staying up to date, staying connected with the project, this is a really important one. I want to encourage everybody to go to our website and sign up for our project newsletter. We're getting ready to send out that first project newsletter. That's where you're going to get the latest and greatest, info on materials that are available, dates to come and participate, et cetera. So definitely encourage you to sign up for the newsletter, but also reach out to me directly or through the project contacts that you see on screen to schedule some time. I'm super happy to sit down, discuss what we've been thinking and the project overall. So with that, I just want to wrap up and thank the committee for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez, and I look forward to the continued development and ultimate completion of this project. I'm sure it'll be an economic and business detonator for both direct and indirect economic development for the community of San Isidro that needs this type of project so much, especially given its proximity to the international border. With that, clerk, do we have public comments?
Thank you, Vice Chair. We do have one public comment. Timothy Bilaashka, you can step up to the podium when you're ready.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Timothy Bilaashka. I am up in Del Mar. I call it mid-coastal, central. I'm not sure. We don't really have, we have neighborhoods sometimes more than places, but I'm a physician and a scientist. I wanted to thank Zach Hernandez. I've heard him speak at some of the other presentations for working on this problem. I just wanted to thank you for the update and mention that in Great Britain, I think it was around the turn of the 1900s, they kind of invented the idea of the queue, where pedestrians, people are expected to stand in long lines for anything. And so anything that shortens those lines, I'm all for. Something came to mind while you were talking about whether you have to do the credentialing for crossing the border at the border, particularly if you're coming back and forth every day as a worker. I'm totally unqualified to even talk about this, but if there were, you're a worker and you have a computer and you download an event ticket to go across the border, the estimated time you're going to be there, and you bring the ticket with you, and your worker and your employer has now certified that, and you're identified and you're walking across the border, maybe that would be something that's in the plans there. Anybody that's gone to a bus station in New York City, 34th Street, particularly years ago, it's pretty dismal to go to the bus station. And so anything that can be done for people that are idle time waiting either to cross or, meet a timing, is to do something maybe commercial with these areas, food. Sometimes people want to make money. And so don't think of it just as a government providing a service, but, let people get in there for some old fashioned capitalism, maybe. The third comment, and then I'll stop. I've talked to some people out of Valley Center over the past few years. Very often the number one concern comes up, when is our grocery store coming? And so the needs of, other than just crossing the border, but getting there, being there, having to wait to meet somebody, I know you're doing it, but I would just encourage you to keep that in your plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Madam Clerk, do we have any other public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do have one final public comment. Blair Beekman, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, Blair Beekman. I've moved down here to San Diego this past July, and I was really interested in learning the work that I'm doing in San Francisco Bay Area, San Jose and Oakland, was around the future of technology accountability for local cities and communities. And I was wondering, moving down here, how that would work, how to understand that. And this is an exact item to consider such things. This sounds like a really good plan, a really good future, and a part of the important ideas of moving, transit through into Tijuana. That's from San Diego into Tijuana. That's a really interesting concept that you first started talking about when I first moved here, and I'm like, wow, I'm here. So thank you. What I'm interested in is, as local communities, we develop technology use policies and good practices and understandings for a community to be able to ask questions of what is the tech in their community. That's the goal of our future. How do we ask that of our federal government? For all the technology they're going to be placing, at this transit hub center, who can I ask? How can I ask? Do I ask federal authorities? Do I ask San Diego County authorities? And for federal agencies to learn to, I would just like to see what exactly the federal policies are about, because I know that at a local level we ask that question often. What are they doing at the federal level on tech accountability issues? And so I just thought I'd raise that question at this time and kind of get our federal agencies ready and prepared how they're going to answer a question from an everyday person in the community who simply wants to be knowledgeable of what sort of technology is placed in a hub area. And interestingly, 10, 20 years ago, you couldn't really ask those questions, and now you can. And there's a progression in how we're moving forward as a civilization that we will eventually, hopefully, be leaving the era of war and considering the concepts of peace and open dialogue and open democracy as how to address our issues of life and not just constant need of war. So good luck how we can do that. And it's really our good practices, it's our good dialogue that lets that happen. So it'll be important conversations with federal agencies to work on these tech accountability issues. And thanks for your time and patience in hearing my feelings on the matter.
Thank you. That was the last public comment, right, Madam Clerk?
Yes, it was.
Bringing it back to the board, I do see Councilmember Moreno's hand is up. You have the floor, Councilmember Moreno.
Wonderful. And thank you for the presentation. I also want to acknowledge MTS for directing $1.25 million to SANDAG to initiate planning and the conceptual engineering activities. It was mentioned, but I want to reiterate that the San Ysidro Transit Center project is focused on the short and intermediate term solutions for this transit center. It does exist along SANDAG's long-term solution of the new San Ysidro Mobility Hub, which will be one of the first 2 mobility hubs that will be completed under our new regional plan. This is there's just such a critical need for the intermodal transportation center in San Ysidro, as it would provide multiple transportation options for our binational country. I always like to point this out. San Ysidro is the busiest trolley station in our system. 13,325 people board the trolley in San Ysidro every day, which is just to compare it to the second busiest station in 12th and Imperial with 6,725 people boarding. So about half of the San Ysidro's passenger volume. And there's no secret that the station is the backbone of the Blue Line. I often like to point out at MTS that the whole weekend of Comic-Con, all the people that board the stations, it literally every single day is the equivalent of 4 days of Comic-Con. And, we see visually the importance that the agency puts on Qualcomm, activities. So I want that same type of focus to be put on San Ysidro. So I will always bring it up. And so it's really good to see it at this committee meeting. This area is going to continue to see exponential growth. And it will become, it has been a major employment hub. I do have a few questions, though. First, in regards to the 1.25 million that was allocated by MTS, is this allocation to fund the planning of the project?
Yeah, so the current work, the current study is roughly $500,000 of that 1.25. The remainder is envisioned to get us started on the subsequent phases. So additional engineering work, getting into the environmental side of things. So it won't be enough to get us to an environmental document at the end of the day, but it's a start, and we're really grateful for that.
Got you. So we still need more funding for, that was my next question, is the environmental studies. We don't have enough funding to cover the full environmental analysis?
No, at the moment, there isn't a single source kind of identified. However, kind of agencies and staff kind of discussing opportunities. We're pretty confident that we can find either getting, aggressive in terms of applying for grants, which we're already, starting to do, or identifying, flexible sources of funding to supplement that work. We're pretty confident that we can find the funding and the support and the resources to do that. But at the moment, yeah, just the planning work is what we're able to cover for right now, with some additional that'll get us started with the environmental.
Got you. And when is the I'm trying to look at my notes at the same time here. When is the environmental is happening right now? It's phase 1. So we're looking at 2023, 2024, but yet we don't have enough funding for it right now. We have partial funding for the environmental.
Yeah, so I guess environmental here is kind of used as a placeholder word or term for some additional work through, design, additional planning and design and environmental certifications and analysis that needs to happen for this project to be shovel ready, as we say. This current study is, like I said, trying to document what are some options. Let's brainstorm, let's bring everybody to the table and discuss what can we feasibly do in the near term? How do we scope out a project that we can get done? And that planning document will set the stage for subsequent phases that will require additional resources that we at the moment don't have directly identified.
So when is that? Because I was looking at your notes and it's the phase 1, pedestrian connectivity and safety. They're just kind of big words, right? That are being used, but when is the actual planning document going to happen? Because right now it sounds to me like you're just gathering information, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of the putting together a planning document, really. I mean, that's the work that's ongoing right now. We're looking to wrap up before the end of the summer with a planning document that says these are, a couple of good ideas, and here's what public agencies think the next steps might be.
So you're gathering information from the public agencies and not the public?
Both. So, yeah, like kind of touched on with a couple slides ago. The public agencies, the core group of agencies that are kind of kicking off some of the brainstorming are just putting together some initial ideas. But like I said, it's an iterative process, and we've been trying to do proactive and targeted outreach to meet with key stakeholders, sit down and do briefings, discuss on a more intimate level. But we're actually we're gearing up right now to kind of package all that brainstorming and do a bigger campaign, a more broadly, a wider public outreach campaign to get, a bigger campaign together.
So the planning document is going to start around August, and we have enough money for the planning document.
The planning document is what's getting put together right now.
Well, you said you were gathering information.
Yeah, that's the nature kind of this planning process. It's leading to a document right now.
Okay, so we're leading to a document, and this document, when are we gonna, so we're preliminary essentially. When is the document actually gonna start?
The document will actually be wrapped up before the end of the summer.
Okay, I'm really confused now. And I think, Zach, last time you presented, I think it was at the Transportation Committee. I really would like to get a briefing as a council member for this area. I really would like to get a briefing on this. I'm happy that it's starting. The only thing is I don't want it to be a document that just sits on the shelf like the previous San Isidro ITC. I actually want this to come to fruition. So we absolutely need to get, I'm gonna, my job as the elected official for this area is to keep my finger on the pulse, make sure it continues, ask for the funding that we need when we need it from our legislators, I'm assuming. But I do appreciate you being here. I hope that I get a briefing sometime soon so I could go over a lot more of the details of this, because we're really excited and we want to make sure that, I'm sure you guys are covering all the stakeholders, but we just want to cross our T's and dot our I's so that when I go out to the community, they don't say, well, they never came to me. I want to make sure everybody gets a piece of this, because it's such an important part of our trolley system, which, is the backbone, right, of the whole blue line, this system. So I thank you for presenting today. And when will you be back to give us an update on this?
I mean, we could come back as soon as the committee sees fit. We can share updates at the next meeting if that's the desire. But yeah, generally speaking, the planning document, like we were alluding to, we're looking to wrap that up by the end of the summer. But between now and then, there's a lot of outreach, a lot of coming to committees, a lot of working groups, the public, et cetera.
Yeah. And so while I have you here, the planning document is different from the design.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, the planning right now is conceptual. there's subsequent phases to bring that conceptual planning to a more finite level of detail.
And so do we have enough money for the design?
No, at the moment, the 1.25 million will get us started with some of it, but it's not enough to get us to like 100% design, as we like to say, or shovel ready, as we say.
Okay. Well, next time you come out, if you don't mind just letting us know how much, I know those numbers are always changing, but how much the design would cost. And also, how long that would take. I don't know if I don't remember if you have that on there. And this is something that I think I need a briefing because I think I'm going to go into the weeds of this and I don't want to take the whole committee into it. But thank you for the time, and I appreciate the extra time, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Moreno. Thank you. I want to call you by your first name, but I want to make it official. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez, for the presentation. Moving on to item number 5, which will be subdivided into 3 different categories, 5A, 5B, and 5C. So we want to welcome, and I apologize if I mispronounced the first name, Madea Parra from SANDAG. Did I mispronounce your first name? Madai. My apologies.
No worries.
It's Madai
a
Parra from
different name,
SANDAG.
so it's okay.
You have the floor. Thank you.
Just get this ready here.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Buenas tardes. My name is Madai Parra, and I am the SANDAG project manager for the Border to Bayshore Bikeway project, and I'm excited to give you an update on the project and what's coming ahead. Let's see if I can use this right. Okay, so just to go a little bit back to the project schedule and project history. So this project began, as Zach, sort of already mentioned, to get a project from the conceptual phase into subsequent phases to get it into construction takes a whole lot of staff time, resources, outside time and resources. So the planning phase began in 2015, and that took place from 2015 to 2018. And then we moved into the preliminary engineering and environmental clearance from 2018 to 2019. The public outreach and participation phase took place between 2015 to 2018 with the, so in between the, the 2 phases of planning and environmental clearance. So that's when we went out and we did extensive public outreach. We had over 15 community presentations. Some of these were community groups with community groups, and some of these were publicly noticed where we went out to the community and we had workshop type forums, right? So this is where we presented 3 different alignments of, what the project could look like. And then we presented, we took public testimony on the preliminary project plans. Then we moved into the final design phase from 2019 to 2022. And that's where we essentially took, the testimony from the public, refined the design, and, honed into just the submittal of regulatory agencies, so the cities, right? And I'll go into a little bit of detail in that. And then now we're ready to go into construction. And that's going to begin from later this month, next month, and then into 2025. So with that, I'll dive into the, a little bit more of the public outreach, like I said, that was conducted between 2017 and 2018. And from the feedback that we received, we selected, the design features that I will be presenting to you. And I just selected, some of the project features worth highlighting. But if there's, questions about a particular area of interest that is not highlighted, I will provide our information at the end. But essentially, we noticed this and cleared the project for the state statute of CEQA and the California Environmental Quality Act, which essentially gives us, the environmental permission to move forward with the project as we know it today. And then more recently, in March of this year, we mailed to over 13,600 homeowners, residents, and businesses along the project area to let them know about the upcoming construction activity.
And so with that, I will move into some of the project features and some of the more like general connection to the region. So and how this relates to the active transportation network that we have in the region. So the active transportation network is a critical part of the integrated transportation system, and this allows people, provides people with mobility options that are basically outside of a private vehicle. So this would allow them to use a multimodal option. So what does that mean? That instead of starting or ending their trip by vehicle, they can do so by means of walking, biking, scooting, rolling. So that's essentially what we're planning for. And SANDAG is currently updating their active transportation plan. And this was last developed in 2010. And this is to ensure that people from the general public that are otherwise lured to, riding on a bikeway, but are otherwise deterred because it's of unsafe conditions, they feel comfortable and safe to do so in our facilities. And so here we have before you, in the image before you, we have a map of the 6.7 miles of urban bikeways that make up the Border Bayshore Bikeway. As we know, we are connecting to the busiest land port of entry in the world, and that is the San Isidro to Tijuana border. And so we're connecting specifically to PED East and with a direct connection to the existing Bayshore Bikeway in the city of Imperial Beach. So many critical connections and destinations were considered, such as parks, schools, transit centers, and of course, as I mentioned, the port of entry, the Bayshore Bikeway, and other destinations in between. And all of that is while making, the urban condition safe for people to ride their bike or utilize the bikeway. This project is also multi-jurisdictional, meaning it does go through 2 different cities. It goes through the city of San Diego to the south, and then the city of Imperial Beach to the north. And this project is made possible due to Transnet, the local half-cent sales tax that funds transportation. And then it's also funded by Federal Active Transportation Program, or ATP, which helps pay for right-of-way engineering and then the construction for the project. So here we're going to start with south and then heading southbound, like I said, just selecting some of the project features that we're highlighting today. So that connection between East Bayer Boulevard to Hall Avenue goes over an existing bridge that is a pedestrian bridge today. So that's going to be utilized as a multi-use path, meaning people who are walking, biking, scooting will be able to utilize this facility as such to cross over the bridge in a safely manner. So a multi-use path is a facility that is physically separated from vehicle traffic. And, it has that minimum distance for two-way traffic to travel on the same facility. So we have that existing bridge that will connect from East Bayer Boulevard into Hall Avenue. And now, and that's just an image of an example of, what a multi-use path looks like. And now this connection is going to lead us into this otherwise residential area of East and West Park. We have the San Isidro Community Park here. And then we have, so starting on the left side, on Hall Avenue between East and West Park, the project is proposing a curb extension. And essentially what that creates, that is reducing the crosswalk from one point of the street to another. So it makes it shorter when people are crossing the street. It also enhances visibility. And on that portion of that curb extension, we're going to have some landscaping and a beautification aspect as part of this project. And then, so these streets are, part of an older neighborhood, which you would expect the more narrower streets. These are one-way streets. And part of the public testimony at the time, as I mentioned previously from 2017, 2018, the public expressed concerns with high speeds on this residential neighborhood. So the idea was to encapsulate, so what the project is proposing is the one-way cycle track on either side. And what that means is there's a raised median that protects, potential conflicts with people who are on the bikeway and then from vehicle traffic. And then it further encapsulates just recreational activity going on at the park. That was also a concern that we heard from the community since, this is a recreational area where children are at play and so on. So creates that, additional level of protection for that reason. And then as we move towards the right, just north of the railroad tracks, that's where the MTS Blue Line trolley goes through. Then the project continues, and that's just with buffered bike lanes. But it's the same sort of level of, same idea of facility with a little bit of separation from vehicle traffic. And then the project also proposes a neighborhood traffic circle at Seaward and West Park Avenue. And this is a major thoroughfare that connects to Bayer Boulevard, and hence why the project team, based on also public participation, placed neighborhood traffic circle. And I'll go into other project locations where we are proposing other circles, but this is just one of them as well. So as we continue on Bayer Boulevard from this neighborhood, this is the sort of typical condition that you would see. So the project proposes the two-way cycle track on the south side of Bayer Boulevard. And this essentially, keeps both directions of travel on one side of the street while eliminating conflict in, some of the intersections as Bayer Boulevard. If we are familiar, there's like some T intersections on the north side. So that essentially, eliminates some of that conflict where possible. And then where there are existing MTS bus stops, some of them have either no shelter or there's just like inadequate pedestrian shelter. So a bus island creates a pedestrian refuge for people who are boarding and off boarding the bus. So in this case, it also eliminates conflict between, the different road users, the people who are on the bikeway, people who are getting on and off the bus, so the transit users, and then it eliminates conflict from people who are, driving on Bayer Boulevard. Here we have an example of a protected intersection. So this is the quite busy intersection of Bayer Boulevard, the 905 interchange, and then Iris Avenue. And this is where the Iris Transit Center is located. I don't think I can point, but it's, or yes, I can actually. So the transit center, it's just right up here on 30th and Iris Avenue. So the project continues the two-way cycle track just right below the transit center. And then we continue as we travel westbound, what is we call a bike boulevard, which is intended for streets that are constrained or more narrow in nature and don't have, quite that much space to accommodate, the two-way cycle track plus the raised median and to allow for the travel lane. So we continue the bike boulevard with some other speed management design features. So in this case, we have just a speed cushion, which is, something that you would see throughout the project. And at this intersection of Ingrid and Grove Avenue and Green Bay Street is another location where the project is proposing a neighborhood traffic circle, again, just to reduce traffic speeds, excuse me. And again, continue that same idea of the bike boulevard and complementing that with other features such as a speed cushion. And there are other speed cushions throughout the corridor, but the project will be, enhancing them. And this is below just a rendering of what a neighborhood traffic circle would look like from, a bird's eye view. perspective. At this particular intersection, there is a middle school, Mar Vista Middle School. And so it was important here just to, again, shorten the crosswalk between intersections here, as there's a lot of, people crossing the street and children who are crossing the street, and continue that with enhanced visibility. So by enlarging the curb ramps, that also creates or changes that behavior from vehicles when they're making a right turn, essentially. So that causes them naturally just to slow down, and then increases visibility who are at the crosswalk or at the intersection. And just an image of a curb extension below. And now some of the landscaping enhancements of this project. So this project is including or is proposing drought tolerant plants, materials, and trees. So this is just some of the trees that are being proposed, excuse me, as part of this project. Some of the trees it was important just to maintain native trees, some trees that are drought resistant. Some of these trees are evergreen, meaning they retain their leaves year round, and some of these are deciduous. So that means they may drop some leaves at a certain season of the year, but the leaves and foliage that the trees that are deciduous will drop will not be of significant debris, nor will they cause any punctures to tires of bikeway users. And now this is a 3D rendering of what the real life conditions, if you will, Fire Boulevard might look like, including the landscaping improvements. So here we have, the different users in this portion with the bus island. So that is that, raised median used as a pedestrian refuge for transit users who are boarding and offboarding, with the shelter. And then we have, some of that drought tolerant plants and or materials. So this is, this is just a reminder that this is the concept. So the actual construction of the improvements might look different, but this was just used back in the very early preliminary planning and conceptual design, just to show again what, Fire Boulevard might look like with the Border Bayshore Bikeway improvements. And now these are some of the recent accomplishment and then anticipated schedule that I will highlight. So the construction contract was awarded by the Board of Directors in November of last year. We received permit issuance from both the City of Imperial Beach and the City of San Diego. We also recently received the Caltrans encroachment permit to do work within the right-of-way, as we do go through three different interstate freeways. And then the anticipated schedule, preliminary construction will begin in May, so that is coming down the pipe. And then the groundbreaking ceremony will occur May 4th, so that is next Thursday at the San Isidro Community Park, and that is at 10 a.m. You're all welcome to attend that event, and it's slated to be open to the public in early 2025. And with that, here is my information. I'm the project manager. If you want to subscribe for updates to the project, you can do so by going to our website, and you can also email us at gobuybike@sandag.org. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I apologize again for butchering your first name at the initial announcement of the presentation. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do. Blair Beekman, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. There is a car horn alarm in the background. Sorry if it'll be annoying. I just wanted to comment, to continue my words about the good purposes of tech accountability. For all these good projects, there'll be a lot of tech involved, and good luck how to develop the accountable open public policies and practices along with the innovation of these new projects. The Vision Zero goals and our innovation goals, to have a focus on tech accountability, that will be an important part of this process. That works towards the ideas of community harmony and positive sustainability of a community. I mean, it really offers a deeper vision of that and a more holistic vision. And I think the vision that we're actually really wanting to work towards, you're creating community that can talk with their government basically and ask questions and work together. And it's nice that we want the technology, we want public safety, but we need to understand that there's responsibility in all this new technology. And that's a concept in and of itself, that we can't just make demands of the tech. We have to be asking for accountable, responsible practices with the tech. And when we learn those together, we have the ways to do that, to learn that together now. And for guidelines, structural, organizational, good models and examples, it's really easy to put that all in place. And that's the ideas of open democracy that works towards the positive sustainability, and actually ideas of peace before war. It works towards the concepts of dialogue instead of dictates. So yes, I'm just about done. Sorry. To conclude, we have to really be considering that we have already a lot of technology and smart streetlight technology that's very, very workable already in place in San Diego that we're not fully willing to talk about openly. We have to learn that it can be an open conversation and an open fact, basically. And it's with that, we may not have to put so much new smart streetlight technology in place that's wanting at this time. We can be conservative and wait for good practices to develop before we do such things. Good luck how all of this works towards a better public safety future. Thank you.
You have an additional public comments, Madam Clerk?
Yes, thank you. We do have one additional, and I apologize. I don't know the name of the person. The name I see is IB Shuffling, but it is your turn to speak and you can go ahead when you're ready.
How you doing, Jared Caswell? Nice to meet you. I had a couple prior comments on the last slide. One of them is being the curb build outs with the stop sign. It pushes your stop sign line of sight so far back from the ADA ramps. Your line of sight right to left is usually houses or fences. So to proceed with caution, you don't really see any traffic at that point from that stop sign. But with the bike lane now being in front of that, also, you're going to be, just say, 12 feet back, roughly, I don't know, from the bike lane from a stop sign to proceed. So I know they're trying to do it to make it safe, but I think it's making everything worse because you really don't have a safe line of sight to proceed, whether you're on a bicycle or a car, and then the way they connect. So I don't know if this is the right place to ask that question, but they're all over every town. Those are my concerns. That with also the ADA ramps. If you are really blind, they all lead to the middle of the street. None of them lead across the street. I know they fund, they get grants to redo the roads and put those in, but there should always be two at the intersections, one going right, one going left. They all seem to be in the middle, leading directly in the middle of the street. And then the only other thing I wanted to touch on was the bike lane that's going to go over the highway or pedestrian bridge. I think it's time, because I think they said it was 2010. But looking into more low-speed vehicle and neighborhood electric vehicles, because part of like going green and going electric is, switching over, to different modes of transportation. But I feel like we're just tackling a bicycle problem, and we're so far behind the leading edge of, what low-speed vehicles can do and get to. So that was it. I don't know if someone can answer it or not, but I'll hang up if I figure out how, or you can hang me up. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last public comment, Madam Clerk.
It was, thank you.
Bringing it back to the board. Do you have any virtual comments from, comments from any members joining us virtually? Seeing none, any board member comments? I apologize. Thank you, Madei, for the presentation. Moving on to 5B. Senor Rafael Luna, who is joining us via Zoom, and Senor Tomás Pérez, who is joining us in person. You're on.
Gracias. ¿Quieres empezar? Rafael, si quieres empezar.
Hola, buenas tardes. Muchas gracias por la invitación. De aquí de Tijuana me acompaña también aquí la directora. En este caso, creo que los expositores seremos su servidor y con apoyo ahí de Tomás en la participación. Bien, voy a compartir pantalla. Sí, la estamos viendo ahí, ¿verdad? Bueno, en esta ocasión, muchas gracias por la invitación a participar precisamente en este gran evento. Nosotros estamos trabajando como parte de Tijuana, somos el Instituto Metropolitano de Planeación. Parte de lo que hacemos ahorita en el instituto también es trabajar un poquito con la movilidad activa, y para ello pues traemos 3 proyectos que tienen que ver con lo que está sucediendo precisamente del lado binacional. En este caso platicaremos un poco de lo que es el bordo, la calzada tecnológico y la colonia de Libertad. Bien. Nosotros hemos estado trabajando desde 2012. Esta es una línea de tiempo más o menos donde hemos estado con esta movilidad activa, tratándola de ser consistentes y sobre todo insistentes, ¿no? Con grupos activos y todo. Allá en el 2012 nosotros arrancamos con lo que es el proyecto que actualmente contamos, que es una ciclovía denominada Benítez, que tiene alrededor de 8 kilómetros, y una adicional que se conecta con el lado de la garita, o lo que es San Isidro, que es a lo largo del bordo, con 3.2 kilómetros. De ahí que fue ejecutada alrededor del 2015-2016, llevamos estas construcciones. Ya para el 2015 tuvimos unas pláticas ya con el lado binacional, con la parte de SANDAG, quienes nos mostraron lo que es el Master Border. Nosotros a partir de eso logramos empezar a trabajar ya para el 2016-2017 un estudio para todo Tijuana, con los grupos activos, inclusive con una institución de renombre a nivel nacional, que es IPDP. Y logramos tener un documento que fuera un eje rector para nuestra ciudad, donde aparecen todo el paquete de ciclovías. Para este año, lo que es, bueno, para el año pasado que empezamos a volver a seguir insistentes en la reactivación de estos paquetes de proyectos que ya estaban incluidos en este documento, logramos tener una junta de trabajo ya con varios grupos, entre ellos CDT, CEMO, que es una institución de la Secretaría de Movilidad del mismo ayuntamiento, el propio instituto, y lo que es la Dirección de Obras e Infraestructura, que es la que ejecuta este tipo de acciones, ¿no? En la cual ya nos pusimos de acuerdo y vimos que había una oportunidad, que es el detonar o ampliar, por así decirlo, una ciclovía que ya tenemos vinculada a lo que es la garita, pero que puede ser un eje rector hacia lo que es la parte este de la ciudad, hacia zonas laborales, ¿no? Y que nos pudiera permitir tener un flujo libre y seguro, que es la ciclovía del bordo, o conocida como el río. Y de ahí, pues, ha sido un proceso hasta llegar hasta la aprobación por parte del Cabildo, que ya nos ha instruido para que precisamente ejecutemos dicho proyecto y, en consecuencia, lo que se requiera para la rehabilitación de la que ya tenemos, como 3.2 kilómetros, y el proyecto ejecutivo, ya con la búsqueda de aprobar ante Conagua, que es el Consejo Regulador de lo que es la infraestructura del bordo, que son 9.4 kilómetros adicionales para poder llegar precisamente a todo el sector económico e industrial que nos queda en la parte este. Si bien aquí tenemos un esquema de lo que estamos haciendo este 2023, a un lado tenemos lo que es el Master Border que se nos facilitó en 2015, para nosotros también tratar de ser congruentes con nuestra infraestructura o nuestro plan de seguimiento, ¿no? Y abajo ahí tenemos la carátula de nuestro estudio, en el cual, si ya vemos el mapa, pues aparece las rutas que tenemos en nuestro documento con 4 líneas de trabajo que estamos ahorita procesando. Una que es precisamente la rehabilitación de lo que es los 3.2 kilómetros del bordo, y ahorita estamos en la fase de análisis y complementos y costos, todo lo que nos va a llevar, puentes y todo lo que le va a aplicar, ¿no? En esos 3.2 kilómetros, y ya tenemos, de hecho, construido, por así decirlo, la superficie de rodamiento, y ahorita estamos buscando reactivarla nuevamente, ¿no? Para vincularla al resto, ¿no? Y una segunda fase que implicaría lo que es ir por 9.4 kilómetros para vincularnos precisamente con todo el eje central que maneja la ciudad de Tijuana. Paralelo a esto, traemos otras ciclovías que son, por así decir, calles completas en una nueva modalidad, ya que nosotros también trabajamos lo que es la regeneración de barrios, regeneración de espacios públicos, y ahí estamos trabajando en la Colonia Libertad, que es uno de los ejes, de los primeros que se nos marcaban si volteamos ahí al lado del Masterboard en amarillo, precisamente, y que ya tenemos también ahí ya lo que es la fase de anteproyecto, y hoy estamos entrando a la fase de proyecto ejecutivo, paralelo a lo que es la ciclovía del Bordo. Y aunado de esto, otros planes de barrios, como lo que es la Buena Vista, donde tenemos una muy buena oportunidad con el Juan Ojeda Robles, que también ya tenemos ahí en este proyecto y estamos pasando a la fase de proyecto. Una ciclovía que nació precisamente de esta línea de trabajo que tenemos con los grupos activos y las secretarías que están participando, es ciclovía OTAN. En esta tuvimos una participación ahí que está pendiente todavía de ver el resultado, que es Bloomberg, en donde también ya entramos a ver si es posible que tengamos alguna oportunidad de desarrollarla con ellos. Bien. Este ya es una forma de lo que está pasando, ¿no? Ahí tenemos lo que es la Colonia Libertad con una imagen conceptual de lo que ya tenemos como anteproyecto. Precisamente estamos buscando rehabilitar todo lo que es una calle muy antigua. De hecho, la Colonia Libertad es del 1930 a 1940, ¿no? Entonces ya requiere un poquito de atención. Curiosamente es una de las zonas que más visitadas del lado americano, precisamente. De hecho, tenemos muchos residentes en esa colonia y por tal, pues estamos buscando activarla, ¿no? Otra que es muy conocida, que es un área gastronómica, que es la Brasil, que es la colonia Cacho, que también ya estamos trabajando en eso, ¿no? Y ya acá al lado derecho, pues tenemos la colonia Buenavista, que estamos también buscando reactivar ese barrio. Y la más importante que estamos detonando hoy en día, que es la del Bordo, que es precisamente la que ven ahí las imágenes, donde vamos a ir a buscar rehabilitar precisamente los puentes para que se puedan articular o vincular a todo lo que fue el proceso de nuestro transporte urbano, de RT, con todas sus paradas y ascensos y descensos que tenemos a lo largo del Bordo. Si bien son 15 puentes, estamos buscando precisamente rehabilitarles o anexarles rampas. Y en una primera fase, pues vamos a buscar que la que ya tenemos precisamente, pues la trabajemos un poquito, más bien le demos continuidad a lo que es el paisaje, su iluminación y volverla a hacer funcional y segura para los ciudadanos de Tijuana. Bueno, aquí voy a pedirle una participación ahí a Tomás, quien está ahí precisamente con ustedes, para que platique un poquito lo que es la ciclovía El Bordo. Adelante, Tomás.
Gracias, Rafael. Lo que vemos allí ante nosotros es una imagen de la la ciclovía del río en su forma actual. Se construyó, como bien nos decía el arquitecto Luna, pues por allí en el 2015, y por alguna razón se inhabilitó una de las rampas de acceso y pues está abandonada. Entonces, pues toda la comunidad, incluyendo el CDT, ha venido apoyando a que se recupere y se rehabilite esta vía. Donde ven allí que están los ciclistas, allí llegaba la primera rampa. Lo que tenemos atrás pues es el puente México, el puente peatonal, que prácticamente es muy utilizado por la gente que cruza de la zona centro a la garita allí de San Isidro. La siguiente, por favor, Rafael. Este es un timeline, creo que ya lo explicó muy bien Rafael. Si quieres, pasemos a la que sigue. Esta es la mejor, creo que, slide que tengo ahorita para ilustrar lo que se puede hacer. La línea en magenta arriba, ves la que nos acaba de presentar Madaí, que es la Border to Bayshore Bikeway. La línea amarilla ya es en la zona de Tijuana. Esa es la que actualmente existe y se quiere rehabilitar. Y la línea verde representa prácticamente la segunda etapa. Toda esta ciclovía, la amarilla y la verde, vienen sobre el bordo poniente del río Tijuana. Y se trata, pues, como decíamos, de utilizar mejor el espacio urbano que se tiene. Todos los indicadores ahí o los recuadros rectangulitos negros son toda la infraestructura de puentes peatonales que existen que en el 2015 pues no todos existían. Ahora tenemos 12 puentes peatonales que permiten a cada kilómetro tener realmente un acceso, ¿no? En el último censo se reportaron más de 200,000 personas que usan la bicicleta, que la tienen. Una de las razones por la que no se usa mucho en Tijuana es por la falta de infraestructura y la inseguridad de andar en bicicleta en Tijuana. Entonces, esperamos que con esta ciclovía, pues que cruza prácticamente toda la mancha urbana y que tiene puntos de conexión, logremos incentivar más el uso y pues incentivar a que el automovilista pueda utilizar una bicicleta quizás para alguno de sus viajes. La que sigue prácticamente es lo mismo. Estos son parte ya de los planos anteproyectos que ya empiezan a ser, ¿cómo se llama? Pues concentrados con agua. Ese es el gran reto que tenemos. La parte amarilla ya se tiene una aprobación por parte de la Agencia Federal con agua. La parte verde que enseñaba en la lámina anterior se está buscando que nos dé la concesión para utilizar el bordo. Y estos son los planos que se han generado. La que sigue, Rafael. Ok, nomás parte del proceso, ya de todo el levantamiento que se hizo de toda la ciclovía, ya se tiene. Adelante, la que sigue, esas son imágenes, reuniones de trabajo que hemos tenido con las diferentes secretarías y direcciones. Logramos acordar un poco allí en la sección típica que se ve, pues más o menos cómo utilizar el espacio. En el lado donde se ve ahí una pick-up es una solicitud de Conagua de que siempre se tenga un espacio para poder tener un vehículo de mantenimiento. La que sigue. Detalles que yo confieso, los encontramos ahí en la ciclovía que se tiene en Chula Vista, que creemos que pues queremos adoptar. Se nos hizo muy práctico en varias rodadas técnicas que se hicieron, la forma como se maneja, entonces pues la estamos implementando. La que sigue. La integración con los puentes existentes, pueden ver allí el Marqués de León, que es el segundo puente. Hay que adecuar esas escaleras, adicionalmente que no tienen acceso para las personas con discapacidad. Perdón. Se tienen que condicionar por lo menos de esa forma para poder hacerlo más amigable al ciclista. La que sigue. Imágenes, nomás renders de cómo estarían aquí estas rampas de acceso. La que sigue.
Ahí termina. Ahí termina.
Con eso, muchísimas gracias. Estamos.
Sí, aquí parte del proceso que traemos es que la primera fase que comprende lo que es la rehabilitación de esta ciclovía, estamos contemplando que se concluyan estos trabajos a mediados de este año para estar en tiempo de poder ir a buscar ya el recurso para su rehabilitación. Y en ese ínter estaríamos trabajando en la fase 2, que es trabajar con Conagua, que es el órgano que opera el canal, y estar pidiendo los permisos y las aprobaciones para de ahí ya estar con el proyecto ejecutivo y ya estar en tiempos de que a finales de este año ya tengamos el proyecto ejecutivo completo, lo que es a lo largo de este río, ¿no? Y de ahí que, pegado a lo que habíamos comentado, pues aparecen estas vialidades, que es el rediseño de lo que es la libertad, lo que es ahora sí que aquí les hablan que es una de las vialidades que colindan precisamente a lo que es el Master Border que traían originalmente, y que son de las primeras que nos etiquetaban, es 1.5 kilómetros. Este corredor pues trae una cantidad de usos mixtos, es un andador altamente peatonal, y que pudiéramos trabajarlo muy agradable para que esto funcione, ¿no? Si se dan cuenta, aquí estamos activando las esquinas, les estamos dando un poquito más de seguridad a lo que es el peatón, pero también la ciclovía la estamos fusionando para que trabaje en armonía, ¿no? Lo mismo estamos haciendo en el corredor gastronómico, que es la Brasil. Aquí sí tenemos un poquito una vialidad más reducida, pero que nos está llevando a trabajar con carriles compartidos en algunos de los escenarios. ¿Sí? Y por último, pues lo que es Juan Ojeda Robles, que también pues aquí estamos tratando de vincular una serie de equipamientos, sobre todo porque es una zona muy de barrio, es una comunidad muy activa que camina bastante y que pudiera en un momento reforzarse lo que es sus cruces peatonales junto con todo lo que es la vía a lo largo del mismo, ¿no? Y pues hasta aquí quedamos. Muchas gracias y estamos a sus órdenes para cualquier pregunta o comentario.
Rafael, primeramente, muchas gracias por la presentación. Tomás, aquí me dice mi compañero Héctor que utilizas la bicicleta cotidianamente para cruzar la frontera y ir de Chulavista a Tijuana, lo cual se me hace tremendamente de mucha valentía de tu parte, porque si aquí la infraestructura no es la adecuada y se está mejorando día con día, en México, específicamente en Tijuana, con el tráfico y la cultura que tenemos los mexicanos de no obedecer las leyes de tránsito, ni se diga el respeto a los peatones o a la gente en bicicleta. Te repito, muchas gracias por esta presentación y gracias por tu valentía en continuar a educar a la gente a respetar a las personas que andan en otro modo de tránsito, ¿no? With that, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do have two public comments. We'll start with Tim Bilaashka. You can step up to the podium and then we'll move to Blair Beekman on Zoom.
If you could be brief with your public comments, we would appreciate it. Thank you. Go ahead.
Timothy Bilash, Central San Diego Coastal. Thank you very much. Gracias profundo. I don't really speak. I just wanted to ask what came to mind, whether these cross-border bikeways and better crossings, it was mentioned by the speakers, might decrease car crossings. And so actually, are we taking into account that that could encourage the environmental aspects of these transportation plans? But is there also, at some point, being so many of them, particularly e-bikes, that we didn't increase the problem of bikeway traffic jams? And that would be nice, but a problem. So I hope that's being considered.
Thank you. And that is one of the processes that is being focused upon. Thank you for your comments. Madam Clerk, additional public comments?
Thank you. Next will be Blair Beekman, and Blair will be our last comment on this item.
Thank you. Go
All
ahead.
right, thank you. I'll be brief. Blair Beekman. Sorry, I didn't, my comments took away time from the previous public comment person. I didn't want to do that to him. But I was intending to keep my comments brief for this item, as I've kind of gone through today, kind of my feelings overall about the importance of tech accountability. A hello to the person speaking, the presenter from Mexico today. I'm sure he's probably well aware of good tech accountability practices that are possible and growing in the US. And that with Vision Zero practices, I mean, most cities really look at and count on and consider what Guadalajara, Mexico is about with their Vision Zero ideas, public safety and community weekday, Thursday to Sunday events that bring out the whole community. It's a whole community process to talk about their ideas of Vision Zero. That's really interesting. And I hope we can do that in this country. We try to do that. We try to stay away from law enforcement and tech. But just so to quickly remind, just to thank you for this item. And I hope this presenter can like the idea of tech accountability along with all these bike trails. There's work, it does really good things and it offers the concepts of public participation, which is just a really interesting concept for our future that I hope you'd be interested in as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that end public comments, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Bringing it back to this board, any comments? Go ahead, Councilmember Chavez.
Primero y antes que nada, felicidades por este reporte al Instituto Municipal de Planeación de Tijuana. Hace muchos años, cuando yo estaba en el gobierno de Tijuana, participé en todos los temas de ciclovías y demás. Les comento que también, y me encanta que escucho que aprovechan y admiran las ciclovías de Chulavista. Siendo regidora de Chulavista, pues me enorgullece mucho. Les comento también que hablando con la regidora Magaña de Tijuana, de la Comisión de Juventud y Deporte, vamos a regresar los International Friendship Games entre Chulavista y Tijuana, en donde usaremos el Centro Olímpico de Chulavista para juegos como de béisbol, soccer, básquetbol, entre otros que no hemos definido. Pero parte de los International Friendship Games, también 500 participantes en bicicletas cruzaban la línea a Chula Vista. Entonces, en eso sí quisiera tocar base, a lo mejor podemos hacer una reunión conjunta. No hemos establecido fecha ni mucho la dinámica de cómo vamos a seleccionar los equipos de ambos lados de la frontera, pero los invito a participar y acercarse a los gobiernos para de una vez sentarnos y pues ya tenemos una persona que recorre las ciclovías todos los días, ¿verdad? Que nos dé la ruta, que nos ayude con la dinámica y a igual que hablar con Customs and Border Protection para el día del cruce y a lo mejor podemos dejar un camino establecido para que en el futuro no muy lejano ya tengamos una vía establecida también para los ciclistas que cruzan la frontera. Gracias.
Gracias por sus comentarios, regidora. We do have somebody virtually with their hand raised. I can identify who it is. Madam Clerk, could you help me with that?
That person's actually a staff member. I think that might be an
Oh, okay.
error.
Okay, thank you. Rafael y Tomás, muchas gracias por la presentación. Muy dinámica. Y de nuevo, Tomás, muchas gracias por la valentía. Darnos el ejemplo, ¿no? Que muchos debemos de seguir. With that, we will move on to item 5C. Because of a personal family health issue, I do need to ask that 5C be a little briefer than possible. And I do apologize for asking you to be brief. And I want to welcome Elizabeth Hensley Cheney and Daniel Gómez from Alianza por la Movilidad Activa, Asociación Civil. Welcome.
Muchas gracias. Muy bien. So, aquí estamos como se habían ido comentando para invitar a un evento binacional que se va a llevar a cabo en el marco del Bike Anywhere Day, pero del lado de Tijuana se llama Tijuaneando en Bici. Aquí lo que tenemos en la pantalla, como mencionaba un miembro del comité a principios de la reunión, es como una imagen que muestra un punto en la agenda de la reunión de Borders de abril de 2011, cuando se convocó por primera vez al ejercicio de Tijuaneando. En este año, en el 2011, la mecánica del evento implicó la convergencia de 3 rutas en bicicleta, como desde Playas, Otay y La Mesa, llegando al CREA. Y en la siguiente lámina se muestra un poco de los diferentes tipos de actividades que se han ido realizando durante los años. Por ejemplo, tradicionalmente se invita a la comunidad ciclista a participar en un cruce fronterizo, que Héctor Vanegas nos ha apoyado mucho en esta parte de la actividad, dando seguimiento a la presentación de Maraí. En el 2016 se realizó un intercambio de presentaciones. Ahí, en aquel entonces, estuvo una persona por nombre Alison Moss, encargada del proyecto del Border to Bayshore Bikeway. Y ella presentó en el Centro Comunitario de San Isidro los avances del BBB, o el Border to Bayshore Bikeway, a la vez que Marianelli Patlán, personal del Instituto de Políticas para el Desarrollo y el Transporte en México, o el ITDP, presentó los avances del estudio de movilidad en bicicleta. En los años 2018-2019 se realizó un aforo ciclista utilizando la metodología de ITDP en el área de Ped West, que es la imagen en el centro. Y en el 2021, en un momento muy interesante a nivel país en México, cuando se estaba promulgando una ley general de movilidad y seguridad vial, pudimos recibir la presentación por parte de Alejandra Leal, una compañera afiliada con una organización que se llama Céntrico, y también con el equipo coordinador de la coalición Movilidad Segura, que podría compartirnos algunos de los avances del proceso en aquel entonces. Aquí tenemos algunas imágenes del ejercicio del año pasado. Tuvimos la participación en este caso de 2 oficinas de Cabildo, de la Regiduría de la Comisión del Medio Ambiente, Desarrollo Sustentable y Salud, encabezado por la regidora Marisol Hernández Sotelo, y la Regiduría de la Comisión de Vialidad y Movilidad Urbana, encabezado por la regidora Georgina Arana Cruz. En este momento lo que se hizo fue una rodada muy corta para llegar a Palacio Municipal y muy interesante la participación de las 2 regidoras en el ejercicio. Para este año, el día 19 o 18 de mayo, vamos a invitar a la comunidad a acompañarnos en la terminal del Terminal Centro del Sistema Integral de Transporte Tijuana con algunas actividades. Principalmente vamos a compartir información, algo que se nos ha, falta mucho la socialización del proyecto o de los proyectos que está manejando el plan, como la ciclovía del río, y se va a ver una presentación en la terminal del SIT. Otra cosa que es interesante mencionar aquí, coincide con la Semana Global por la Seguridad Vial convocada por Naciones Unidas, y como parte en México, como parte de la coalición Movilidad Segura, se va a realizar una jornada nacional por la paz vial. En fin, invitamos de la manera más cordial a toda la comunidad a participar, y tratando de respetar la necesidad de ser breve, ahí me paro.
Elizabeth, muchísimas gracias por la presentación. I'll say it in English, I commend you because as an American, you speak better Spanish than I do. So hats off to the presentation in Spanish.
Tengo acento, pero ni modo.
No, hablas precioso. Felicidades. I'm not sure if your partner wants to say anything, Daniel.
¿Deseas comentar algo?
No, pues nada más que se sacudan la polilla y se suban a la bicicleta. Adelante. Gracias.
Muchas gracias por la presentación. Muchísimas gracias. Madam Clerk, do we have public comment?
We have no public comment on this item.
Bring this to the board. Do we have any board comments? De nuevo, muchas felicidades por la presentación. Muchas gracias. With that, I believe we come up to item 6, which is upcoming meetings, and we do have a border committees meeting scheduled for May 26, 2023 at 12:30 in this forum. Prior to closing the meeting, do we have any comments by our board members? Hearing none, the meeting's adjourned 12:21. I'm sorry, 2:21. My apologies. Thank you.